work.
Define realistic in this case. I'm looking at a chicken wearing a metal helmet with a ninja skull on its back. Define
Well,
realistic here.
What's not
well,
realistic about that?
yeah. Let's just go off the chicken before
Mhm.
we even get to the items.
Okay,
Our chicken, we wanted a plump chicken,
right.
and so we got Scott
made
to
it.
model one,
Yeah.
and then it took us like 10 times to be like, Scott, I think it needs to be just a little bit more plumper, just a little bit, just like every time. It started like a normal size, and now it's actually decentish.
It's
Good.
unfortunate because the current view of the chicken being behind it and above it, it doesn't really
Yeah.
show that plumpness off
Mhm.
very well. And so because of that, and the field of view and stuff, it doesn't look the way it does when I'm modeling it in Blender or whatever.
Mhm.
And so I kept making it bigger and bigger, and it just barely made a difference in the game. But like, that's all right. It doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to like say
Yeah.
anything bad. I just thought it was
You're right.
funny. It is funny,
Yeah.
like part of the process.
It's more just like making sure that like it matches the proportions of the chicken. Some
Right.
things work with the chicken head and or body. Some things really don't. Like clothing is very awkward because we've got the wings flapping around all the time. And I'm like, I'm still new to like this being the first game. I'm still new to like making things work with that kind of like
Right.
we on the rig on the chicken. You know what I mean? Like, so that's something I'm learning, and I definitely want to bring into a future project. But for the moment, we're trying to I'm trying to avoid adding those kind of things that are like skin suits or whatever, like
Right.
tight suits that like wrap around the body of the chicken, making it a little bit more awkward because you
With-
get a lot of clipping and stuff like that if you're not perfectly animating it or. But
With that being said, then, what was the hardest item to do the modeling attaching to the chicken?
I think it has to be like one of the body items because although the body is awkward because we've got a bone on the back where
Okay.
you equip things, like a backpack will sit on the back quite nice, but as soon as you put like something else on that bone, it might not deform with the rest of the chicken as well.
Right.
But overall, I think so. Like one of the body ones was the chest plate. That was an interesting one because I had to worry about like having it big enough that it would fit the chicken, but not like clip too much.
Right. Right.
But overall, the foot, the shoe things for the foot bones have been the most annoying to model in general, or to like set up the bones and to get them working to bend and touch the cylinder and not clip through it and just but
that makes sense.
Each has their own unique difficulties for me.
My
But,
extent
like,
of
at least-
dealing with 3D modeling is doing a donut tutorial. So
Oh yeah, classic.
Classic.
Yeah, that's where I started. So
yeah.
yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed that tutorial. It was good. But yeah, so a lot of mine was more to do with 3D modeling for just renders, like fun, nice looking renders. But then learning to make it game ready and like unwrapping the textures or the UVs so that you can apply a texture to it and stuff like that. Like we don't have normal maps. We're not using any sort of normal maps at the moment, I don't think. There might be one or two. But that's just because that was new to me, and we will do that in another project because we got too far with this one to then start going back and adding that kind of stuff.
What about the weld? Anything hard about that?
I really dislike the fact that it's quite a, like, if you think about it, it's like it is a cylinder, and
Right.
our world is round and sphere, so it makes sense. But because of the scale of the chicken to the cylinder, everything has to have that curve to it, and you have to really put it in. Otherwise, it doesn't work if you want to have like an even amount of things spread out along the, like for the barns, for example.
Right.
We started making them straight up, but then you'd have like these triangle wedges
Yeah.
that are between the barns that you could just fly through. And so we had to like redo the barns to make them include that like cylindrical shape. Because each one is like a wedge of or like an arc of a cylinder.
It didn't
But yeah.
click with me that you had to do, like, it's really obvious with the walls. Like, the walls are obviously curved, but I didn't even notice the fact the barns were curved. That obviously they're curved. That sounds like a nightmare.
it was because like I was so happy with the barns as they looked initially that like I really didn't want to start from scratch and have to make a new whole barn. So I really like it was a little bit of back and forth trying to get it to work. But yeah, in the end it's mostly there. I think there's a little bit of a gap at the top, but nothing that you can like fly through or anything.
Right.
There's still a few objects that are just straight, like
there
fences,
are,
I think kind of work because they're short. But as soon as you get tall things or wide things, they have to start curving, and sometimes it can look weird. Like we had like clothesline, which I mean isn't too bad, but it's a bit weird that like we were like, does the line curve? Because that would be like, why would it be curving up? But the line goes straight, but the poles kind of like go out wide, like on that angle.
Yeah, it did make it a bit of a challenge. Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing right now you got these like concrete pipes that are just leaning up against like another one. It's in like one of the videos you put out. Like that part, like you don't have to do anything special for that. Like you can just have them sitting there because they're sort of near enough. Like they're not directly on the ground. Like there's a little bit that's touching the ground, so you don't really have to worry about it. And also they're near enough to the scale of the chicken where it's not like a major disaster. But like
they had to be rotated instead of just moved left and right. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I'm curious about is the clouds. So, because they're curved as well, do you just have like a bunch of set cloud models that you just have going back over? Like, what do you do with the clouds?
Alex, do you want to go there?
Yes, we have a number of cloud models.
Okay.
And we randomly spawn them as they go through, so they're different all the time. But it does pick from a set number, and then it kind of also picks a set rotation and scale. But this is another challenge of using a cylinder is when you have something that's baked in curved, your rotation options are straight, normal, or 180 degrees. You can't go 90 because then you have a curve along the cylinder instead of around the cylinder. So, and you might see the same thing in the mud piles that are kind of like just a lip up from the grass that they're on. Those can only be rotated in two ways. Otherwise, you get very odd looking Pringle shaped mud, which doesn't quite fit. But that's how the clouds work. There's a couple of them. We also have different kind of colors and different effects for each of the worlds as well. And we do have some different models for the different worlds as well, especially if you've seen any of the lava footage. They look a lot more menacing than the clouds in the Pleasant Pastures.
The lava clouds are curved, but the other ones I think are just like straight.
Well, some of them are curved.
They look
Some of them are slightly, maybe
they look curved, or maybe that's just
longer ones.
They certainly look curved, but maybe that's just because of the like perspective. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it depends on the size of them as well. And one of the weird things about the clouds, and you've seen it in the videos already, like you can see them when they're not above you, but they're off to your right.
Yeah, that looks that. So they're like where they're placed is based on where like the part they're above. So the angle looks a little weird like that, but
so that you get vertical clouds on the side. It fits the world though. When you rotate around, you'll also notice the shadow kind of goes and sweeps over, not for clouds, but for other objects that are big. You'll see that their shadow kind of sweeps over because the light that has the shadow is directly above the chicken all the time.
Oh,
and it's always real-time shadows.
Yeah.
And so
we
as
wanted
you're
the Mario
turning,
shadow.
we wanted it straight down so that you could know where you were landing. But that does mean that we couldn't do stuff like baked-in shadows or anything like that because the shadow perspective changes based on where you are on the cylinder all the time. So that's one of the performance challenges we've had here is we need real-time
Oh.
shadows to get that
Mhm.
jump
Yeah.
shadow, but at the same time, yeah, we couldn't bake any of it, which was really. But
Not to
no performance
mention-
pins there.
We also really there was a bit of a struggle with skyboxes and stuff in general because we initially were gonna paint on some clouds to the skybox, and when we were doing that, because we have we're kind of like looking into the skybox, and it's just like we're doing actually a sky sphere, I think, not so much a box, because we couldn't really get that to look right with the cylinder going into the horizon, I suppose. And so when we painted on these things, the clouds, you would end up with this big ring of clouds, and it just looked really awkward. And so we were like, trash that idea. We'll just make clouds that are physical that we can spawn in, and then we'll just go past you and then despawn and then spawn back here at the start. But yeah, like doing anything because of the cylinder nature of the world was just, it was something that we hadn't really thought of being that much of an issue, but like it definitely gave us, or me, some sleepless nights because I was like, oh my god, how am I gonna do this?
Here's
And
one
then
thing.
we saw
One thing I was-
Sonic, and we were like, oh wow, they've done that really well. We didn't even know it existed until someone was like, hey, this is like that Sonic game. We're like, what Sonic game? We look it up, we're like, oh, one of the Sonics does this. And we're like, oh no.
Sonic game?
So you're saying?
I was gonna say, on the bright side, it's a cylinder. Okay, you could have made it worse and made like, what do you call a 3D oval thing? I don't know.
A
Oh, yeah.
ellipsoid
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah. There. Where the curve isn't consistent, that would be so much worse.
That would be painful. Yeah.
I
Definitely
hadn't
not.
even considered like how much trouble a cylinder would have given you, but
Yeah. Neither did we.